Hi, I'm Steven from Just Got Played, and every July I go to Dice Tower East in Orlando, Florida. I'm from Orlando, so it's really easy for me to go. Although I do stay at the hotel. It's a really nice resort that they host the Dice Tower convention at every year. I head down there at the beginning of July, and I spend 4 days gaming. The con is actually 5 days, but I only do 4. And then what do? I make a video telling you about all the games I got to play at the convention and what I thought of them. So I got there, I got my badge, and I walked in the room, and there was one of my friends setting up Village Rails and looking for players. So I texted John from Just Got Played channel as well and said, hey, you want to play Village Rails? And so he came on over and we sat down to play this. You see here it's 2 to 4 players, 45 minutes, not very heavy on the weight. So pretty simple game in which you are, every turn, you're putting out one of these train tracks, right? So this grid, you start with it empty, so you got 3 by 4, so you got 12 turns, right? So 12 turns, and you're going to put one of these tracks down every turn, and the tracks do different things. So there's symbols on all of these. These symbols here, they score points if you have a bunch of them on the same line. These symbols actually score for having at least one of those on the more tracks you have at the end of the game, you score those. These tractors, you can see there's different terrain types on these cards. Some of them have 2 terrain types, some of them are just 1. But anyway, these tractors score for having more tractors on different terrain types. These barns score for, they tell you what kind of terrain tile they score for, right? So this one says whatever, farm, plains, etc. So right now there's only one of those on this line, so you only score 1 point. But if there were multiple of those on the line, somehow you had done that, you would get points. And these cards are laid out in a row. There's like 7 of them, and you can just take the one at the end of the row for free. Otherwise, you have to pay on each one sequentially to choose the one that you want. But you can run out of money pretty quickly. You get more money by when you complete a line. You can play with these terminus cards, and these terminus cards say things like, score points for the number of lakes on the line or something. I mean, get money for the number of lakes on the line or whatever. So you get more money that way. You can also buy these cards. They're like destination cards that you attach to a line. Like this one says 9 points minus 1 for every track in the line, including the border. So if the next person were to play a card here that connected this all the way up to the edge, this would only be a 1, 2, 3 track line, and that card would be worth 6 points, right? So it's interesting. It's got a little puzzle, thing going on there. Not incredibly interactive. I mean, somebody takes the thing that you want occasionally, but that's more of an accident than anybody doing anything on purpose. So it is a fun game. I would play it, but I don't feel like I need to own it, particularly because, well, you saw over here, it only goes up to 4 players. It says best at 3. We did play it at 3, but I very rarely play games at 3 at my house. Anyway. All right, so after that, I pulled from my list Majesty for the Realm. So Majesty for the Realm was a little bit of an older game that I wanted to play because there's a new version coming out. And again, this is 2 to 4 players, 20 to 30 minutes, low weight game. So this is one that I was interested in. Maybe I would like to own this, even though it only goes up to 4 players. Normally, I try to buy games that support more. But essentially what you're doing is you have all these different sort of locations, I guess, and every turn you're going to take one of these cards and, you can take the one here for free, or you can put your little worker dudes on it to take the next one, etc. So you've got that whole system. But anyway, you take the card and then you put it in its appropriate location, right? So the witches go in the cottage and the farmers go with the mill, soldiers go in the barracks, etc. And then it tells you what happens when you trigger that location. And some things might benefit other players, some things might negatively affect other players. You score points, etc. And I thought it was a pretty fun game. It was quick, easy to understand, and I wanted to play it because there's this new version coming out called Middle Ages. So that's coming out maybe at Essen this year. Maybe they were showing it off at Gen Con, which is happening as I record this video. You can see it's got just It's the same game as far as I know. It goes to 5 players. Okay, so that was one thing that interested me. But otherwise, it's basically the same game. And I think I like how these puzzle pieces go up here, and it looks like you're sort of building a village rather than just stacking cards. And then some of the other pieces seem a little bit nicer too. So I'm interested in this new production. Was actually going to pre-order it. Been waiting to see it come up for pre-order on Game Nerds, but just haven't seen it yet. But I will when it pops up. I think if it's reasonably priced, which I expect it to be. So I actually think I'm going to add this one to my collection. All right, next I played Gnome Hollow. This is a game that wasn't really on my radar, but John pointed out to me. He said, "Hey, I think you might like this game." Does only go to 4 players. I think this is wrong. I don't know. I mean, maybe if you are good, have played the game several times, you can play it in there. Otherwise, I think it's going to take longer than that. And this weight, I don't understand that. I think there's more rules complexity than that weight suggests. It's not really a heavy game, but there are a bunch of little rules. In fact, let's talk kind of about how it plays. So you can see one of the reasons John thought I would like this, and I did like it, was you're taking a tile and you're placing a tile, right? I like tile placement games. So anyway, you take a tile, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to make these rings. And so you can start a ring, and you put one of your gnomes on it to signify that you sort of own that ring. And you only have 2 gnomes, so you can really only be working on 2 rings ever. Anyway, when you complete it, you get these different mushrooms according to what was on the symbols that were on your ring. And you collect all of those, and then you can turn those in to score points. And this is a race, and to an extent, because there'll be point chips on these. And like, okay, so I'm the first person to turn in 8 reds. I'll get the chip that's sitting here that signifies those points, right? And purples are actually worth more, and there's less of them, etc. So you want to race to collect them to get the thing before anybody else. All right, so those are points. That's one way you score points. But also, as you complete these rings, as you complete the larger rings, there are benefits. But you pull down these pieces from here down to here. So like if I completed a ring that was only 3 tiles, I would move one of these down to here. But if I moved one of the larger one, 5, 6, 7 plus, then there's a benefit that happens when I pull that down. Maybe getting flowers. They're worth points. So as you remove these things, there's point values here. So you can see the points that you're going to get. And then also at the top, the flowers, as you put in the variety of flowers up here, you get points. And there's other things like you put out signposts, and signposts turn rings that are finished into sort of action spaces where you can send your gnome to get something. You can take some of these tiles and you can reserve them to play later. When you get to these certain sections, you get to add a new type of flower to the game, and you get one of these wilds, which you can reserve to place anywhere you want, right? So I just feel like there's a bunch of little things going on that suggest the weight is higher than what I saw there on Board Game Geek. But anyway, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm not going to seek out a copy of this to add to my collection, I don't think, mostly because the 4-player limitation and the fact that it's just got a bunch of little rules that I'd have to explain to get game night going. But it's fun. I enjoyed it. If somebody asked me to play it, I would definitely play it. All right, so that was in the hot games room, by the way, Gnome Hollow. So was Faraway. And Faraway is the game I think I played the most times at the convention. I played it, I don't know, 4, 5 times, who knows? I mean, I do have some records here somewhere. I could probably look it up, but I played it a bunch of times because it's so quick. 15 to 30 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I played it on the lower end of that some. And it goes up to 6 players, which is great. I like that. The weight is low. It's really easy to explain. The complexity is in the cards and how you play the cards. Sort of a hard game to wrap your head around maybe until you've played it the first time, but it plays so fast I don't see that being a problem. I actually have pre-ordered this game, but actually I guess I ordered it and put it on hold, so I'll release that when some other pre-orders come in. But it's simple in that what you're doing is every round you're taking a card. So there'll be some cards that are face up that everybody can draft from, and you've got a hand of cards and you're going to play one of the cards, and you're going to play them from the left to right, right? So you play this one first, etc. And but at the end, you're actually going to evaluate them in the opposite order. So normally in board games, you kind of like collect the resources required to do something, and then you do the thing. In this one, you put down the card saying, I want to be able to do the thing, but you need to then collect the resources afterward that enable you to do the thing. So it's a little bit of a hard thing for people to maybe mentally get until they play the first time. There are numbers on these cards. Those numbers affect who gets to draft the cards each round in what order you draft. But also, if the number that you played is higher than the one you played the previous round, it allows you to get look for these hidden shrines. And these hidden shrines give you either point scoring opportunities, or they give you some of those things you need to unlock cards. And there are these little clue map things here. And the more of these you have mean that you can look at more cards when you get to explore for one of these hidden shrines or whatever. So you'll get handed more of the cards. You only ever get to keep one each round, but you have more to choose from. So that's nice. Anyway, but to talk a little bit about how it works with the evaluation. So if you look at this card right here, it gave a map, which is nice. It's a high number, but it has this requirement of 3 of this symbol, right? So you have to have 3 of that symbol. And if you do, then you'll score 3 points for every yellow or green. So now let's just assume that you had those 3 symbols. Here is a yellow, and here is a yellow, because these are always out. But now this one's only out. These don't count yet. In fact, I turn all of these over and then just turn them over sequentially when we're playing, just so people don't mess up. But in reality, this person didn't have these 3, so they would get nothing for this card. And this card, they would also get nothing for, but it gives them 2 symbols, which they might need to unlock something else. This one is just straight up 4 points with no requirements. This one, it requires 3 of this symbol and 1 of that symbol. Let's see. I don't see any of that symbol, right? So they didn't get that, and they definitely didn't get this. This card is useless. This doesn't look like a very good play of this game, right? Here's that symbol, but it's coming too late. Anyway, etc. That's how it goes. So, it's great to get some of these cards early on that have high requirements. Like if this was one of the first cards you played, you'd say, okay, well now by the end of the game, I need to have all 4 of those symbols and have played a lot of yellow and red cards, because, like if you look at this, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 of those cards. You could score 12 points for that card. And if it was all the way on the left, then more opportunities. So anyway, I like Faraway because it's really simple to teach. And like I said, it's a little hard to understand for some people. Some people get it right off the bat, but some people, they start evaluating their timeline backwards and are like, "Ooh, oops, I messed up. That doesn't do anything. That doesn't count." And then, so that can be frustrating. But the game's so fast. Just play it again if that happens to you. I would recommend. All right, next, cities. All right, so cities I was really interested in. I really like Phil Walker Harding games. I think Steve Finn games are generally pretty good. DeVere has been on sort of a hit streak for me. So, I thought this was going to be a lot of fun. Again, it's lower weight and not very long. Only up to 4 players, which isn't great again. But, I was interested in it. And I don't know, it just kind of fell flat for me. So this is the game. You build your own little space here, and you build that out of every turn you draft from each one of these rows, right? So in this row, you're going to get some of these buildings to stack up. And on this row, you're going to get features to put on these tiles. And those features score points. And this row here, this is where you get the actual tiles themselves that sort of build your base foundation. They have different things on them. So there's water or parks or the types of building that can be built in the space. And then up here, there are cards that give you scoring opportunities. And you just kind of keep doing this until you're done drafting, each of this stuff each round. There's a different city you play with, each time you play the game that gives some different scoring objectives as well. So, there's nothing wrong with the game. It was just, I don't know, it just felt a little flat. It just didn't seem like it was incredibly interesting. And these scoring cards seemed really random. In fact, the one that's face down here is just completely random. This last column, everything is sort of face down. So you're just like, well, I don't like what's out there. I'll take a random chance that I get something useful. So, none of that's great. But yeah, I don't know. Well, one of my friends actually randomly just got a bunch of cards that, scoring cards that worked really well together, and he scored a ton of points off them. Yeah, I don't know. Just I mean, I guess I would play it again if somebody really wanted to, but I don't really have any desire to play it again. So yeah, I thought this was going to be one of the better games that I played at the con, and it was totally the opposite. That was a big surprise. What do you know? All right, Skyrise. So Skyrise, I looked at this originally when they had a crowdfunding campaign, I guess, and it's a Roxley game, so it's got a beautiful production. But I watched a playthrough of it, maybe Tantrum House, I can't remember. And I just thought, well, okay. I mean, it looks okay. It didn't look like it would blow me away, and it looked a little overproduced for what it was. You can see here, it's got all these big, beautiful buildings on these plastic things that snap together, and you got other nice components as well that go along with it. And I do feel like it is a little overproduced. The box is a little big for I care about shelf space, so the box is a little big for what I would want on my shelves. It's an auction game, and it's okay, I guess, right? So if you are starting an auction, you choose one of these spaces that you want to maybe claim, and you put one of your buildings with a specific number on it, and then the next person can choose a neighboring space that is available, if one is available, and they can put a higher number building, and that sort of keeps going on until somebody, everybody passes, and whoever was the last person to put a building down flips their building over, and they've claimed that space, and everybody else takes theirs off. And there are different reasons to want to claim the spaces. There are some scoring cards. Like I had a scoring card for having buildings in a sequence to score a bunch of points, for instance. And you have a specific color that you want to control a bunch of that color. And then there are these little discs on the spaces that you pick up. These letter ones give you a variable number of points, but you can find out as soon as you figure out what those points are, you can maybe go after the more valuable ones, or you can get the colored ones, which sort of power up your buildings in spaces, either make your buildings in certain spaces more valuable than others. And then like these bridges are worth points, and there's sort of an area control to get points for each area by having the most / largest building. So it was okay. I mean, it is an auction game, and I like auction games, so I definitely play it. But I'm not interested in particularly adding it to my collection. But speaking of auction games, one of my favorite auction games of all time, probably my second favorite auction game of all time, behind For Sale, is Raw, and I have the fancy 25th Century Games edition of it, the Pharaoh edition, and that's what, of course, is in the Dice Tower library. So that's what we played. So there's a kid actually that every year randomly I end up playing a game with this kid, and so we were setting up Raw, and he came over to play with us. So that was interesting and funny. But Raw it's an auction game and a set collection game. So you're pulling tiles out of a bag to build a row of stuff, and at any point somebody can say, well, I want to start an auction for what's in the row, and you have 3 of these bidding tiles to use every round, and there's also a bidding tile on offer. So when you win, you put your bidding tile on offer, and you take whatever was on offer for a bidding tile and you put it face down for you to use the next round, and you get all the stuff there. And some of the stuff, like on the left hand side of the board, stays with you for the whole game. And so these only score at the end of the game. These score each round potentially, and the stuff on the right scores and goes away every round. So anyway, it's an older game, so I'm not going to get a whole lot of into how it's played, but it has a little bit of a push your luck thing going on, and that these raw tiles come out of the bag and they sort of push this boat along till it ends the round, and so you can actually have the round end on you without you having used some of your bidding tiles, which is generally not great. You want to have collected stuff for your bidding tiles. But as I said, this is one of my favorite auction games of all time, and it's a classic, and this production of it is phenomenal. So I would recommend it to anybody. I actually played this more than once at the convention, just because, again, it's pretty easy to explain, pretty easy to play, and really fun. All right, so I mentioned that played that game with a kid, and then so we decided let's play another game. And John and the guy he was sharing a villa with at the hotel, they wanted to play this Unmatched Cobble and Fog. Now, I've never played any of the Unmatched, but so they were going to play as a team, and I needed a teammate. So the four of us sat down to play, and actually, so I think Cobble and Fog adds 3 or 4 characters, right? It should be down here somewhere. Anyway, yeah. So the other team was Sherlock and was Dracula. And on my side, there was the Invisible Man, is what my teammate played. And then, okay, here's Jekyll and Hyde. But I wasn't Jekyll and Hyde, I was Beowulf. I just randomly took Beowulf out of the thing. So that was fun. Beowulf's sidekick has a thing where he can pretty easily do 1 damage to everybody surrounding him, and which really took out the sisters pretty early on. But they kept the Invisible Man's fog in check the whole game, and they sort of focused on him and managed to wipe him out. And it was close in the end, but the people who had played Unmatched before, amazingly enough, managed to win the game. But I don't really like these sort of card battlers where you have cards in your hand and you use them to battle with people back and forth. It's not really my style of game, although I enjoyed playing this one, and I would play it again if somebody wanted to play it. But yeah, there you go. That is how we decided to close out the first day of the convention. So those are all the games I got to the first day. So now let's move on to day 2. Happy 4th of July! Day 2 of Dice Tower Con was Thursday, July 4th. And it started for me with the virtual flea market exchange. So every one of these conventions has a virtual flea market where thousands of games get listed on Board Game Geek in months leading up to the convention, and people agree to buy and sell things. So I had some things that I was selling so I needed to drop off with people, and then other things I needed to, hand them the cash and pick the games up from them. And this is what my haul was. So it started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was back in my room with all this stuff by 8:35. So the exchange went really quick for me, better than in previous years. So that's nice. This is a chess. All of these things are in sort of 3 different categories, right? So one of the categories is just gifts. All right. So this is going to be a gift for one of my sons. It's a chess board / checkers board / backgammon. If you turn this over and there's the pieces are inside, I think I paid $4 for this. The Alpha, one of my sons is really into wolves, and the theme of this game is the wolf pack and being, I guess, the alpha in your wolf pack. So this is probably going to show up under the Christmas tree for him later this year. The Librarians, this was for a fellow Board Game Geek, and so I have already shipped that off to him. Kraftwagen I originally got to be a prize in a poker tournament. Every December, I host a poker tournament, and the buy-in is a donation to charity, and the top finishers get to choose from different prize boxes, and one of the prize boxes has always got some board games in it. And so anyway, I had originally got that to go in there, but I ended up giving this away to Sheldon, so shout out to Sheldon, who I really only ever see and play games with at Dice Tower Con, but played several games with him this convention, so that was fun. I actually have another copy of this old version of Kraftwagen that I'll end up putting in the poker box because I have the new Kraftwagen now, which I'll talk about today, I think. All right. Some other things that are going in that prize box for the poker tournament: Puerto Rico, classic there. This is Legacy, the Testament of Duke de Clichy, which is actually a pretty good solo game if you want to play it that way. But it goes up to, I don't know, maybe 4. Expansion is in here, maybe some promo cards, I'm not sure. Tiny Epic Quest, another game that I like. This came with the playmat and extra item meeples, so that'll go in the prize box. Alien Artifacts, this has got expansion and promos and maybe basically everything from the game. I don't know. I only paid $3.50 for it though, so that'll be nice in the prize box. And the other games, I got to actually play myself. So Endless Winter, I played this later with John at the convention. I really like this game. It's going to be hard for me to get to the table. It's goes only up to 4 players and is a little heavy in the teach of the game. So it'd be really hard for me to play at game night. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I really like the game, but maybe I'll trade it or gift it or sell it or something. It's still in shrink. It's like a sort of a deluxe version with an expansion. So that's nice. New York 1901. I've actually played this with my kids several times since I got back from the convention. They seem to like it. It's a lightweight game, but it's a lot of fun. Zuvadis, I'm hoping to get to the table when we have a larger group for game night next. And then what else we got here? We got some space games. So kind of hidden back here is One Small Step. And Godspeed, I like my space games. So those were the hook for me to grab those. So anyway, yeah, virtual flea market is how I started the day. And then we moved on to some actual games. All right, so next up is the White Castle. So, I mentioned before that Devere, I like what they've been doing. This was their sort of follow-up to the Red Cathedral. I really liked the Red Cathedral. Played that a bunch. I don't know if it was last con or the one before. I think it was the one before. So anyway, finally got to play the White Castle, and we actually played it. We played it wrong. We got a few of those minor rules we played incorrectly, but it was still fun enough that I wanted to revisit it. So I played it again during the convention the correct way, and it was an even better game. Go figure. So it's essentially a dice drafting game. There are these dice on these bridges. Normally, I just take the bridges off and put the dice down because they make it harder to see things. But you draft these dice, and then you put these dice out somewhere on the board to trigger different actions. And you've got your own sort of private board here where you can trigger some actions if you want, and it also stores your resources. And then there's this lantern action that you power up. So anytime you trigger the lantern action, you get all the things that you have powered up for your lantern action, which is just private to you. And it's interesting because there's a lot of ways that things interact. You want to put these courtesans out on these different levels of the palace, but these fighters, or whatever they are called, soldiers, they score according to how many courtesans you have out here. And you want to get courtesans out in order to get these cards, which power up your lantern action. And then the farmers over here, they can score points, but you need food to put out farmers. You need iron to put these out. You need, is it like a mother of pearl or something to put these courtesans out? So there's a lot of different intertwined things, and you have a track up here, the Heron track, maybe it was called, where you can score points, but that also determines turn order, which is important. So there's a little bit of a race to be had on this track. There's a race to get up here, because if you get all the way to the top, you get to choose the better thing. I've seen several different strategies played in this game. Just because the last time I played it, just because of what my starting stuff was, I had a victory point in my lantern action. So I decided I was going to trigger my lantern action every chance I got. So anything out here that would trigger my lantern action, taking the lowest value number die from one of these triggers your lantern action. So that was an interesting way to play. And I did end up winning that game, although not by a lot. So, I think there are a lot of different strategies. So White Castle, really good game. One of my favorite games of the convention. Not sure if I'm going to actually get a copy of it, but I'm sort of on the fence about that. All right. Next up, we've got Dead Reckoning. So Dead Reckoning, every year in the Jack Vessel Memorial Fund charity auction, I post an item, and it is, hey, you get to play one or more games with the crew, and I bring you some gifts or whatever, right? So that's the auction item. And so Barb and Carl won that item for the second time in a row. And so I brought them a couple of games we had gotten from publishers for review, or things we had put out on the channel. So I gave them a couple of those games, and this was, I asked them for a list of what are some games you want to play, and this is one that they own but they haven't played yet. So we decided we're going to play Dead Reckoning, and John learned how to play the game, and I spent a long time setting it up. And but I like pirate games, and so we were playing it 4 players. The weight is probably correct here. It is, there's a lot going on, and it did take us a long time to play. It took a long time to set up and a long time to pack away. Actually, you see it's a bit of a table hog. And I think, okay, so I mentioned I like pirate games. I really like Merchants and Marauders. is my favorite pirate game. But and I don't know what it is I like about pirate games. Maybe the sort of exploration aspect of it, or something, or the theme. I don't know. But this game wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. Like, I wondered, this is John D. Clare. It's got this card crafting thing where you upgrade your cards that you have by, all your cards are sleeved, and you slot other sort of transparencies in there to give different actions. But I felt like maybe I didn't see the ones that I'd upgraded enough. Maybe there weren't enough turns, but at the same time, the game did take a long time, so that was weird. Maybe I should have found some way to call my deck or something, or maybe not add as many cards to my deck or something. I don't know. But there was a lot of randomness here. I mean, there's obviously randomness in the sea battle. I didn't mind that, but the deck building aspect was, I mean, on one turn I drew, my captain or whatever character it was that allowed me to initiate a combat, and I had a bunch of guns, but I didn't, I did something else that turn, and then so I used those cards for other things. I didn't really use my guns, and then the next turn somebody comes and attacks me, and I just don't happen to have any guns in my deck, and so I'm going to lose the battle. And it's like, well, that was sort of totally random. I just felt like, for the most part, you just played what you drew. So you could be saying like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And you can sort of, level up your cards according to that. That's the strategy that you're going to focus on. But at the end of the day, you just, well, these are the cards that I have in my hand, so these are the actions I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to sail over here and drop some cubes on, John's island, because, well, that's what I drew, and he's within range. Like, not because of any strategic decision to do that. So anyway, I felt like I didn't have as much agency as I wanted in a what otherwise feels like a sandbox game, right? I want to be able to do whatever I want to be able to do, not just what limited actions I have that turn because of what I drew from my deck. So I'm not sure deck building and sandbox go together very well. And so in the end, I mean, the game was okay, but it felt too long and complicated for the experience I got out of it. I wouldn't play this game again. I mean, even if you asked me to play it, I would probably not play it. But maybe if it was Barb and Carl and they asked, I would play it with them because they are excellent. Thank you, Barb and Carl. All right, so next, Terrorscape. This is another game I didn't particularly enjoy. I had never even heard of it. Was it 2 to 4 players, 30 to 45 minutes? It seems about right. The weight, yeah, maybe. It's not that complicated, and it does have this crazy good table presence. Maybe not the best picture here, but you've got this giant mansion on the side here, and it's a 1 versus many, right? So there's a bad guy on one side, and then there's the people that are trying to escape from the bad guy. So, maybe some horror person, murderer, butcher, whatever, trying to kill these people on the other side. And the people on the other side are trying to, it's hidden movement. So they can do things that might make noise, which would alert the person over here to maybe go, attack them or whatever. But the people over here, they're either trying to collect the 5 keys, I think it was, to get out, or fix the radio and call the police, and then wait for the police to arrive. So there's just sort of timer, essentially, for these people to get out of this horror house. And it was okay. I guess the thing that I didn't like about the game was we played 1-on-3, and I had never played the game before. And maybe one of the people on my side had seen it played, but not played it. I'm not sure. But essentially, when you're playing a game for the first time, you want to be able to ask a question like, am I doing this right? Can I do this? Did we miss something? But you can't talk in this game, because if you talk to your teammates, then the other person who you're competing against, the bad guy, hears you and gets information about that. And it's a hidden role game, and you're trying to hide and do things. So you're just kind of doing some hand signals and pointing at some things and hoping they don't see it. And at one point, I was just I wasn't sure I was doing something right, and I pointed at the card, And it turned out our team wasn't doing something right. We weren't triggering noise when we were supposed to. So maybe 1 or 2 turns we got away with something without triggering noise like we should have. So we won actually fairly easily. I think we also got a little bit lucky with some of the stuff, the way the cards came out for us. Anyway, so, I mean, I guess the game could be okay and fun if everybody knows how to play it and the cards don't just come out in a way that makes it easy as well. So, I don't know. Maybe I would try it again if somebody wanted to, but I wouldn't gravitate towards the game myself. All right, at that same table, after we had played that with those same guys, I played Forest Shuffle. So Forest Shuffle was not something on my list to play, but it looks pretty. 2 to 5 players, 40 to 60 minutes, lower on the weight. So I actually had gone, to do something and come back, and they were sitting down to play this, and I had missed the teach of the game, and they're like, "Do you want to play?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I don't know how to play." And they're like, "All right, just sit down," and they gave me a quick overview, and we started playing. So I was sort of figuring it out as I go along, but I would say that most of the complexity of this game is actually in the cards itself, right? So you can draw cards on your turn or put cards down in your tableau. So you can take cards from the deck or from this face-up area. And you put cards down. You can put cards in the top left, bottom left, and right of a tree, and they all have different ways that they score, and they all say how they score, right? Usually related to whatever. Sometimes the tree scores according to what's around it. These things will score according to what's around it, etc. So it's just a combo game, right? You're trying to find combos and build them in here and get points by the end of the game. The deck has got some winter cards in it, and I think when the third one comes up, the game ends. So, you don't know exactly when the game's going to end. And again, you're just trying to get combos with your trees and animals to score a bunch of points. So it's pretty light. It's fun. I don't feel the need to own it, but I would definitely play it if somebody, if I was at a game night and somebody said, "Hey, do you want to play Forest Shuffle?" Sure, I would jump into that. All right, what else did I play? Yeah, Kemet, Blood and Sand. So this one was a little bit of a difficult one. So Sheldon, who I mentioned before, wanted to play this game. And so I grabbed JJ, and the 3 of us sat down to play. And I think JJ had played before, but Sheldon and I had not. And this is, but JJ's memory on it was like, it was a while ago that he had played it, so he couldn't just teach it. So we're just sort of trying to go through the rule book and set it up. It's a bit of a table hog. There's a bunch of things going on. It wasn't very well labeled about what was what sometimes. So it took us a long time actually to figure out how to set the game up, oddly enough. And then we had to figure out how to play too. And now that I know how to play, it's not that complicated, but it was not fun to set up and learn from the rule book. I didn't think the rule book was very good, at least in this version. I know there's multiple versions of this game, but anyway, it's pretty basic in that you have these troops and you recruit these monsters and you just go and you smack each other until you get enough points on the track to win the game. And actually ended up winning the game because JJ brain farted on the last turn. He knew that he had to do something to stop me, but maybe he thought he had more time. So anyway, I did manage to win the game, but yeah, there was a little bit of rules confusion while we were playing, or at least on my part, but I guess I still managed to win, so it wasn't that bad. It's interesting, but it's not, I mean, I don't know if so, it's a dudes on a map smack each other type of game, but it doesn't have as much strategic or tactical depth as I want in a game like that. Yet it's just as long as other games like that. Maybe just because of how long it took us to learn the game. So anyway, overall, I didn't really enjoy Kemet that much, which is weird because I know people talk very highly of it. But all right, that's just I played it once. It wasn't great, and I wouldn't gravitate towards playing it again. In fact, I probably would not want to play it if somebody asked me to play it again. So yeah, there you go. All right, Kraftwagen, Age of Engineering. So I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about Kraftwagen from the virtual flea market. So this is the new version of Kraftwagen that's coming out later this year. I just put a video out on the channel of it because the Spanish publisher who ran a crowdfunding campaign also sent me a sort of sample, pre-production sample copy to do some videos on. So I got an unboxing and explanation of that sort of video, and then a review that we published, and that's because I got JJ and Erock to play it with me at the convention, and Sheldon also joined in. I think this game is best at most players. 4. Yeah, there you go. 4. And it's a great game. I mean, I liked the original, and I think the new one is better. The publisher, the US publisher, Arcane Wonders, also had a copy at the convention at their booth for people to check out, but I brought this one with me. And it's you're running an automobile company in the early 1900s in America, right? Early 20th century. And you could have a car that you can race around the track, or you put cars out for sale, and then you attract buyers to come buy these cars. And it's got that system where whoever is in the back gets to go next, and they can jump as far ahead as they want to take the action that's out there. But then, several people may go before they get to go again if you jump too far. Like red here's jumped pretty far. Green can take this for free, so why not? They'll race their car, and then they can choose what they want to do because it'll still be their turn again. This is the new part of the game where these you have 6 tiles out in every era. The game's played in 3 rounds. I think they're called rounds, actually. These come out and they don't get replaced during the round. At the end of the round, they wipe and new ones come out, and you get them through this new action here. And research is sort of its own separate thing. So you can, I think there's 3 places. Yep, there's 3 places you can do research, and those allow you to bump up your technology for your engine or your chassis, which, are the cars that you put out for sale. So anyway, it's, I won't explain the whole game, but I love this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, top 25 anyway. And this version is just better than the other version, I think. So that's great. So anyway, that is how we closed out day 2 of Dice Tower East. So let's move on to day 3, Friday. All right. Are you still with me for day 3? If you are, why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button down below? We're a small channel, so getting subscriptions does help us out. I'd like to get to 2,000 subscriptions, and we're really, really close. So anyway, just consider that. Actually, if you look down below, too, we have a Discord channel. So if you want to ask me about any of these games or anything else, any other game, any other thing that went on at Dice Tower Con, you can feel free to come on over to our Discord channel and ask me there. I'm always in there answering questions. All right, so I started off Friday here with the White Castle again, and this time we played it by the actual rules. And I won't go into it since we already talked about it in this video. But if you like this kind of mid-weight Euro strategy game, this is great. You should check this one out. It's really good. All right, so I had mentioned before that John was going to show me Endless Winter, since this is a really game that he really likes, and I had gotten a copy. So we got the one out of the library and decided to play it. So you can see here, 1 of 4 players. We played it at 3 and 2 hours. It took more than that to teach and being first players and all. And you can see it's in that same sort of mid-weight strategy area where I like to play a lot of my games. There's a lot going on here. It's a bit of a table hog, right? So you have your own private board here where you track how much food you have and how many tools you have, and you can put out these tents and then these cities. But as you put these tents out, it actually gives you more food storage. So you got a bunch of things going on here. You have your own deck of cards that you're gonna add cards to, maybe even remove some. So you sort of build a deck and you draw from those, and you use those during your turns, or you reserve them for the end of the turn to do something. I don't remember all the terminology, and get some stuff. So, but you have these workers, and one of them who is like your chief or something, and they can go on these spots that do different things, and your chief gives you a bonus if you go to the specific area where your chief is good at, which is just a thing that's, I think, randomly assigned at the beginning of the game. But you know, you can go out and you can hunt these animals that are here, which is sort of a set collection thing, or you can eat them for their meat, or you can just sort of capture them, which is a set collection thing, the way to score points. You put things out here, sort of like an area control thing going on. You get resources during the night phase. I've forgotten what this track is called, but you move up on either side of this track. You have a marker on each side to get some stuff or points. And there's this thing, I don't even remember what this thing was supposed to symbolize either, but you put out these little pieces and build on it, and you collect resources this way. And down here are some of the cards, the people that you can add to your deck. There's I guess it's maybe off the table here. There's another pile of cards that are available for you to get during your actions, additional cards that go into your deck that do stuff. So I really liked it. I kind of tried a narrow focus strategy on specifically based on hunting, and it went pretty well. I mean, I lost because I didn't do much here, and I didn't do much here, and I didn't do much here. But you know, so I feel like in retrospect, maybe I needed to put some of my tents out so I could have more food. You know, and that would have also possibly given me some stuff here. But I was just kind of thinking, well, I'll let the other guys fight over this, and maybe I'll focus on these other things. And I mean, like I said, it almost worked out. Definitely an interesting game. Definitely lots of different strategies to pursue. A lot of different paths to victory, it would seem. So anyway, it's a solid game. Again, another one I'd recommend checking out. All right, so this is something a little bit on the lighter side. This is a party game, cooperative game called Edo. Maybe only released in Japan, although it is coming to North American distribution anyway, if it hasn't already. But you know, there's got to be in the Dice Tower library, and it had English rules in it. So we were able to play it, and it's a pretty simple concept. So you have a card with a number on it from, I think it goes 1 to 100. I don't think there's a 0. I think it goes from 1 to 100. And then you randomly get assigned a sort of category, well, an area, and then you pick one of the categories in that area. Anyway, so it could be something like, I don't know, brand recognition was one, something like that we had. And you play your card face down with your marker on it, your cube, which symbolizes your player color, and you don't say the number, you say something that is supposed to tell other people what you think the number is. And then they will play cards above or below that, or in between other cards. You know, they'll look at their card and say, oh, well, my number is lower than that, right? So if you have a number like, I don't know, 70, I put my 70 face down, put my marker on it, and said Pepsi. I don't know, you know, if you had a 100, maybe you could say, I don't know, Apple or something, right? And put that way up, you know, decide that one's going to go to the right of all the other cards that are out there, and put your marker on it. Or you could have something really low that's like a 5, and you choose CM Tech, right? That's brand of the microphone that's sitting in front of my face, right? That's pretty low brand recognition, I would imagine. So you would put that, you know, face down and put your cube on it. You would put it to the left of all the cards, you know, thinking that it's low. So anyway, it's just interesting, fun. You know, you just flip it all over and see. I don't even really know what the scoring or you know, victory condition sort of stuff was. We just played it to see how the game worked and have fun with it, right? I mean, that's what you do with party games. All right. Then I bumped into Sheldon again, and Sheldon had one of his friends with him. And she said that she didn't like particularly complicated games. You know, we were by the library looking for something to play. And I was like, all right, well, what do you like to play? And so she didn't like anything complicated, but she was a big fan of area control. And I said, well, okay, this game, I don't know why this game has a weight of 3. I mean, there's a lot of sort of strategy and guessing what your opponent's doing or whatever, but there's not a lot of rules complexity. So I don't know. I don't agree with that high of a weight on this game. Like I said, I thought that this is pretty simple to teach and play. To be honest, I think you can do pretty well even your first game of it. Anyway, but El Grande is a classic from 1995. They have a lot of different printings of it. They had the most recent big box printing in the Dice Tower library, which looks like this. And it's pretty simple. On your turn, there are a bunch of cards that aren't in this picture, but there are cards out on the table, and you're basically bidding for turn order. And in turn order, people are going to select the cards, and you have these caballeros that are here. They start way out in your provinces, and then the card that you take, the card that you play to do your auction, the higher number cards are going to give you a higher player order, but they're going to recruit less people from your provinces to your court, and the ones that are in your court are the ones you can actually put out onto the board. And then the action that you choose, that dictates how many of your caballeros you can put from your court onto the board, and then ultimately it's area control, right? So you have 3 rounds, and then you do a scoring of all the regions. 3 rounds, and you do a scoring. And there's some interesting rules. This is the king, and so when you're putting caballeros on the board, they have to be put in a region neighboring the king, but not in the king's region. And in fact, you can't do anything to the king's region. So there are cards that might move things around or whatever. But you can't ever mess with the king's region. So you could use the king as a sort of a defensive measure. If you're already winning a region and you put the king there, it's going to defend that essentially, since nothing there can change. Besides being able to put your people on the board, you can put them in the tower itself, which has point scoring. So you can see the point scoring is actually for first, second, and third. At least that's the way it starts. These can change during the game. There are tiles that you can put over them to change them. So the tower actually gets scored, and then everybody secretly sends all their people that were in the tower to a province. So that's what this is. You choose where those people are going to go, then you score the tower, and then you score each of these provinces in a row. And anyway, like I said, you're going to score that 3 times, and you're just going to see who wins the game. So it's pretty interesting. There's some stuff about you get extra points if you won the king's region. You get extra points if you won the region that has your Grande in it. Your Grande doesn't count as a piece for the area control. And the complexity is, I guess, in the cards. You can move the Grandes around. You can move other people's caballeros around. You can move your own around. You can score regions sort of out of turn of a scoring time. There's a lot of different stuff going on. But anyway, it's a classic, right? 1995, and is it still in the BGG Top 100? Still in the BGG Top 100, even though it's almost 30 years old at this point. So that's pretty impressive. And I have to say that Sheldon and his friend, they had not played this game before, and they both enjoyed it. So unfortunately, it goes in and out of print a lot. So sometimes it's hard to get a hold of. But you can just wait. It will eventually come back in print. I promise. You can hold me to that. I don't know how you're going to hold me to that. But just saying, it always seems to come back in print. All right. So after that, John and I found Bonnie. So shout out to Bonnie. That first game, actually, that I played at the con was with Bonnie, Village Rails. And I didn't give a shout out to her earlier. She's at every Dice Tower event with her cart of games. And this came from her cart of games, Mille Fiori. It's a Kinesia, there's theoretically a theme here. No, I mean, there's a theme here, but it's a little thin. But it's a very abstract game. You're drafting cards, and then when you draft a card, you can use it one of 2 different ways. You use it to move your boat here, or you can use it to put one of these sort of, I don't know what you call these, diamonds. They're little pieces of colored glass thematically onto the board, and every area does something different. Like I came down here and scored a bunch of points building these pyramids. People seem to leave me alone doing that. They were concentrating on messing with the shipping or trying to get the combos up here for these neighboring things. And then I got some of the points for the keys that end up over here. These, they sort of power up if you get them in a row, but then there's also sort of a set collection thing, and that if you've collected like 4 or 5 different numbers along the sequence, you score extra points. So anyway, it's very dry, as a lot of Kinesia games are, but it's interesting. If you like puzzly games, it's not terribly interactive. I mean, there is some interaction here, or trying to block people or get something here, I guess you can do. And then there's always just drafting, right? Like if you're just gonna decide, well, I'm going to go for the thing the person after me in draft order is going for. There's that kind of interaction. But not really my style of game. I won't be adding this to my collection, but I would play it if somebody asked. It's a decent game. But then again, we played another Kinesia game. I have to say the theme is pretty thin on this one too, although it is fun to go rah, when you want somebody to draw raws out of the bag because you're done with the turn already and you don't want them to just get a bunch of stuff for free. So raw, I've already talked about it. It's fun. I think I played a couple other games today. I think I played Faraway again today. I don't have that up here. I didn't mention that. And I think this is the day every year somebody wants to play Murder on the Cosmic Express with me, a game that I designed. So I check it out from the library and I play it with some people. Now, I think I'm the only person who ever checks it out from the library. So who knows how long it's going to stay in the library. It goes in one of those little tiny boxes. So maybe it'll last. Anyway, so that's a couple I don't have up here. But I do have Surfosaurus MAX up here, which is an interesting card game. It's because you're playing... like cooperative poker almost. I don't really know how to describe it, but you have these cards in your hand and they have these crazy suits like guitars and flowers and palm trees and pineapples. And then there are numbers. And you're going to play a card and then everybody else is going to play a card and then you're going to play another card and those are going to go around. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see what is the best poker hand. So here is actually the cheat sheet for the poker hands down here. Is it like a straight flush or 4 or 5 of a kind or whatever? What is the best poker hand that can be formed with all the cards that the people have collectively played? And if your card makes it into that collection, then you score it as you stick it under your coconut. Because if you look at each card, like the lower number ones are worth more points. There's a coconut and half coconut value. So you stick it under the full coconut if your card was essential in making that highest, whatever the poker hand was. And what I mean by essential is, well, what if you just have a straight, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe 3 people played 4s? Well, so how do you decide whose 4 matters? Well, everybody who has a 4 just scores it as a half coconut. So they put it under the half coconut. So you do this, and I don't remember, is everybody get to lead once or everybody gets to lead twice? I don't remember exactly how long you play the game for, but you just keep stuffing cards under these coconut or half coconut according to whether or not you scored them. Oh, and every time you play a card, you draw a new card, so you have a handful of cards to choose from when you're deciding what to play. But there's a little bit of table talk, like, hey, why don't we do guitars this round? Or hey, it looks like a flush is coming up, we can steal this from those guys. So it's interesting. It's weird, and not the gameplay is weird because it's like this competitive / cooperative poker game, and then the art is equally weird with these surfing dinosaurs. So yeah, it's cool. Fun theme. I actually played this a few times during the convention. I don't know if I recorded when I every time I played it or not. But yeah, it's a fun, interesting game, and it goes up to 6 players. We did play it at the max player count. All right, cool. So yeah, that wraps up Friday. So on to Saturday, which is day 4 of the con for me. It is also the last day of the con. So let's see what I played then. Okay, on Saturday, I finally convinced John to play Let's Go to Japan with me. I kept saying, hey, I wanted to play this game, and he didn't want to play it, but he was confused about what game this was, and I don't remember right now what game he thought it was. But so we got it out of the library, put up a players wanted, teachers wanted sign. Sure enough, we got 2 other people, including one person who had played it before, and so we were able to play it at 4 players. By the way, I noticed this BGG Con ad right here. BGG Con, I'm talking about Dice Tower East here, obviously, but BGG Con is also a fantastic convention. So, if that's easier for you to get to or the timeline works better, that's another convention with a great library and great people to play just lots of games with. All right, yeah, so let's go to Japan. So you're drafting cards and you're using those cards to sort of program these days, I guess I'll say, because you're going to have a journey through Japan, and you're switching between Kyoto and Tokyo. I can't remember which color is which. But every time you switch, you need to have a train ticket here, because you switch from one city to the other, and here you switch from one city to the other. I mean, you can switch in the middle of the day too. And some ones, like these gold ones, eat ramen at the best place. That can be done in either city, so you can play it as either one. But whichever card is at the end of the day has some scoring stuff on it. So this is, 3 cats, lucky cats, which is the points for having 3 of those symbols, which I guess this wouldn't have yet, because you do them in order, right? So like this one has 2 cats per pairs of this. You can see there's a pair, and there's a pair, and here's a couple that would pair up, etc. But as you get to these symbols, you move these things up on the track to track them. Your happiness can go up and down. If your happiness goes all the way up here, it moves this track up. If it goes down, you get negative points for the unhappiness. So you're scoring points for moving these things up. You're scoring points for the things that are at the end, and you're just trying to figure out how I'm going to fit these cards in here with the symbols to maximize the scoring. And you can play it completely puzzly if you want, or you can look at all the flavor text on these cards. Everything you're doing is some interesting thing to do on a trip to Japan, and so there's flavor text in there. It's a really good game. This is one that I'm considering. I would like to own it, and I would like to play it with people. I'm not sure it's right for my group though, so that's where I'm a little bit on the fence with it. But overall, good job on this one. All right, Things in Rings. So Things in Rings is, I guess, a cooperative sort of. No, it's not cooperative. It's a party style game. I mean, everybody is trying to figure out the thing at the same time, but I guess there's one person who wins. I just stumbled on my friends who are playing this, and there's one person who. Let's look at here. Right, so there's like an attribute, a context, and a word, and each one of these things, there's some specific thing that everybody's trying to guess, right? And so there's some word related thing to that, what they're trying to guess, an attribute or context. So you're trying to figure out what all those things are by playing cards, right? And so you play a card and you try to put it into the proper space in the Venn diagram, and then the person who knows what's going on says, yes, you're right. And then you get to play another card, or you're wrong. And when the person moves it into the right area. And then you draw some more cards and your turn is over. And then I think if you've shed all your cards and you can say what the 3 different things are, the word rule, the attribute rule, the context rule, then you win. And then, out here you could have none, of course. But so lion fits into the context, attribute, and word, where brain only fits into the word. And so what word might be is like a brain and top. It could just be like ends in a consonant, or maybe one syllable, I don't know. This is ID here, right? That ends in a consonant. So maybe that's the word rule, except, mummy doesn't end in a consonant, neither does vase, and those are in that Venn diagram. But you can see that's how the game is played, right? You're trying to figure out, what makes sense that for a word, attribute, context for a lion, and why would a chainsaw be in the context while a vacuum is not, so anyway, it feels sort of like a party game. I guess it's a word game. So if you like word games, maybe you like this one. It's not one that I'm gonna run out and get, and I've seen games like this before. So anyway, but just basically based on the rules, I think you'll know whether you like this game or not. Here's one that the rules, in my opinion, really hurt the game. So this is Video Game Champion, or at least it's coming to North America as Video Game Champion, I think later this year. Obando video game was the original Brazilian name for the game. And that is the version we played, was Obando video game. And there's a lot going on here. The theme is pretty cool. You're trying to become the video game champion, right? So you're trying to beat the games before everybody else and get points that way. So you have to draft these cards, which have colors and numbers on them, and then you use those cards to beat these different video games or reserve them at the rental store. And there are magazines that you can get to help you with that, or you can actually get things as a gift. There was an interesting thing here where you can like spend time with your grandparents to get some money and, to give back some of your promises, I guess. Like you make promises that, I don't know, I promise I'll do my homework if I get to do something. Anyway, the theme is pretty interesting. The game, like there's this thing over here where you collect these gems and place it on. I feel like the game needed another iteration through game development personally. And the rules were awful. So I turned this game back into the library, and the person, who I checked it in with was like, "Oh, I love that game. Fantastic game," or something. And I don't want to harsh somebody's buzz, right? So, because I definitely was not feeling that way about this game. So I just said, we had trouble learning it from the rule book. And he said, "Oh, horrible rule book, awful rule book." So I don't know, maybe the new version, when it comes up, we'll have a better rule book. But I will say that even at the end there, I'm not really sure if we were playing the game right. And that's sort of frustrating. But even I think if we were playing right, like I said, I think it just had some rough edges that need some polishing. So I feel like there's a good game in here, but not in its current iteration for me. Anyway, so this is one of the misses of the con for me. I thought I was going to like this game a lot. All right, here's a game that was not on my radar, Harmonies. This was in the Hot Games room. And John had played it, and he was like, "You need to play this. It's fun. It's great. I think you'll like it." So I was like, "Okay, well, if you think I'll like it, I'll give it a shot." And I did like it. It only goes 1 to 4 players, but it's pretty short and is lower on the weight scale. So I think it would work for my game night if... this is one of those games where I think I could get 2 copies and then I could play it with more players, because I don't see why, if you just had more components, I feel like you could play this with more people. And that's because on your turn, what you're doing is you're taking some of these discs. You have to take a group of these discs from the board that are out randomly, and they're different things. Like blue is water, and green is sort of like a tree almost, and gray is sort of mountainous, and red are buildings, and these are, I don't know, desert or plains or something. And you're just trying to build these different patterns, right? So here is sort of a tree, right? There's wood with a green on top with ocean next to it. So you build this pattern, and you can see here's this pattern sort of flipped. And when you do that, you can put one of the cubes on where it specifies, and now that tree, I'll call that a tree, can't be used as another satisfying something else, right? So you satisfy this once, it's 4 points, 9 points, 14 points, right? It's for doing it multiple times. So you can still use that tree to satisfy something else. I don't see something in here that does that, but you just can't score that specific tree for a pattern that requires a cube on it. Anyway, so there's this pattern with a yellow with this next to it. So you can see this one maybe scored there, but it couldn't be used here again because you've already used it. This one got used there. Anyway, it's just an interesting puzzle. Like, where am I going to put pieces? And you grab these cards from a set that are out. And when you grab the cards, then you start, taking the cubes off them, putting them on here and scoring those points. So it's a fun, puzzly game. It's not really a whole lot of player interaction or competition or anything. Although you may be going for a specific disc that other people are going for. I guess you could be paying attention to that if you wanted to, but it was just a fun puzzle game. So if you like sort of puzzly things, then maybe give this one a shot. All right, next. So Namiji was in the library, and I don't know if this was like a bigger deluxe version of it or if every version of it is big, but it was kind of a big table hog. But you can see this is Antoine Bauza. It's sort of iteration on Tokaido. So you can see here it re-implements Tokaido, and that it absolutely feels like that. So this is thematically you're in a boat, a fishing boat, and you're going on this voyage around. And just like in Tokaido, where you stop at inns, in this one you stop at docks, and you get something at the docks. But you have your own boat, and you can get fish and put them on your boat to score points in different ways. You've got these paintings you can do, so you can score to get different ways. There's this push your luck game where you're drawing crustaceans out of a bag, and you have to, if you get too many crabs in your net, I guess they set everything free. And there's this other lantern thing which is on your board too. You have negative points, but you put these lanterns out. You set these lanterns out into the ocean to honor your ancestors, maybe, I don't know. And that gets rid of the negative points. So instead of scoring positive points, it's negative points you have to get rid of. I don't know why it's like that. It's a little weird. The game it's basically Tokaido. I don't know. I played a lot like Tokaido. I will say that I have Tokaido, and I won't be replacing it with this. One, because it's so similar, I wouldn't feel the need to, but also two, because in Tokaido there's this thing where you want to get to the inn to maybe get a cheaper meal or the specific meal you want for set collection. So there's sort of an incentive to get to the inn. Here there is an incentive to get to the dock because there are these game-breaking cards available at the dock, and I think that was just a little overboard. The things that you get at the dock just seemed, I don't know. Overpowered isn't necessarily the right word, because I mean everybody's going to get one, but the swinginess of each of them seemed rather dramatic in a way that I didn't like it as much as Tokaido. So I mean, it's still a good game, but I just like Tokaido more. So that's my take on that. All right, Scout. Scout is an interesting one. I had played this at BGG-Con, which I went to last year. Wow, I would like to go to BGG at sea and navigate Norway's famous fjords, by the way. I'm not going to do that, I don't think, but my wife and I did go on the Dice Tower cruise several times, and that is also a fun time. So these board game cruises can be fun. Anyway, I digress. Scout. So Scout, 2 to 5 players. It says best at 4. I have played it at 5 and 3. And I played it at BGG-Con at 3, and I just thought it was absolutely awful. And that is because I felt like on around half my turns, I didn't have a choice about what I would do. Because normally, when you're playing the game, you have a choice to play something from your hand or to scout. So when you scout, there is some kind of combination out of the board. It's either a straight, like 7, 8, 9, 10 going on here, or a set. Like maybe 3 7s or something. So if you can play something stronger than what's on the table, you capture the cards on the table and you get those cards out of your hand. So you're trying to shed cards out of your hand and score points by capturing cards both ways. Obviously capturing is best, but you can't always do that. Sometimes you want to just scout. And when you scout, you see every card actually has 2 sides. So you can only scout from the edges. So you could take the 7, or you could take the 7 and you could put it in your hand as a 7, or you put it in your hand as a 3, or you could take this 10 and put it in your hand as a 6 or as a 10. And you're not allowed to reorder cards in your hand. So being able to take a card and put it somewhere to connect cards is particularly powerful and useful. But if you're playing at 3 players, if somebody will put down some cards, and then the next person will typically scout those, and then you have to play something to beat what's there, because if it gets back to the person who originally played it, the round's over and they win. So I felt at 3 players, it was just awful. A whole bunch of the time, it was just like, we have to play now. Even if taking that card would be an excellent play for me, scouting a card to give me a great play the next round, you can't, because there isn't going to be an next round, because the game's over if you don't, or the round is over if you don't do it. So I really hated this game at 3, and so I was surprised everybody was so big on Scout. Well, anyway, some people wanted to play it at Dice Tower Con, and we had 5, so I played it at 5, and now I see why everybody likes this game. I think probably at 4 players it's also pretty good, but at 5 it is actually a really fun game. Do not play this game at 3. I don't know what the special rules are at 2, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, don't play this game at 3. Hey, Surfosaurus MAX is back. So same people I played Scout with, we played Surfosaurus MAX. And again, very well received. All right, so this was a sort of a long running joke, and just got played because Challengers was up for some award. What did it win? It won the Kennerspiel. All right, and won the Kennerspiel des Jahres, and Erock took exception to that. Right, he was like, maybe it could win the Spiel des Jahres, but why the heck is this thing winning the Kennerspiel des Jahres? Because it's just war. That's what he said. I was like, hey man, there's got to be more to this game than you're letting on. There's no way it won the Kennerspiel without having some strategic depth to it. So it plays up to 8 players, but it's basically a 2-player game. When you're playing with a bunch of players, you're all pairing up and battling each other one-on-one, and then you could have sort of a tournament structure there. So it's basically a 2-player game. So anyway, and we had, I think there were some expansions in there in the Dice Tower copy, although I believe I only pulled stuff out of the original Challengers to set it up when we played. But essentially, there you have a hand of cards and you shuffle them up, and you're playing tag, capture the flag, right? So one side has the flag, and then the other side has to play cards until they beat your number and they get the flag from you. And then your people who lost the flag have to go on to the bench on the side. And then you start playing cards to try to get the flag back. And then ultimately, either your deck's going to run out, or if your bench is full and somebody can't go to the bench, you could lose that way. Or if your deck runs out and you didn't claim the flag, then the other person wins. And so you go through subsequent rounds of that, but you get to power up your deck every round. You can cull things out of your deck. You can add new cards to your deck, and there's sort of rules about adding, 2 from A, 2 from A, 2 from A, or 1 from B in this round, right? Like it says it on here what you can do. And so I found that part of the game more interesting, I think, than Erock did. He had played the game a bunch on Board Game Arena, I don't think had played it in person. But anyway, so we played it in person, and, I have to agree with him. I don't know why this was the Kennerspiel. This is more a Spiel des Jahres kind of game, in my opinion. And it doesn't have a lot of strategic depth, but I had fun playing it, right? Sure, there weren't a lot of decisions. There are some cards that give you some decisions when you turn them over in your deck, like look through your deck and find something, or, take something off your bench if you want, or whatever. So there are some decisions to be made, but like, I just had fun, surprising my opponent with the new card that they had never seen that is now in my deck because I drafted that. Or, like, oh no, my card came out first of the one lets me, get rid of things on my bench, and I don't have any things on my bench already, or pull something back off my bench, and I can't because, there's nothing there. Those were just moments of fun. And I mean, that's what games are for, right? So I'm not going to buy Challengers because, like I said, it really is a 2-player game, even if it is 8 people. So I don't think it really fits with my gaming groups that I play with, but I don't, it's a fun game. I would play it if anybody ever wanted to play it. So there you go. I finally cornered Erock and made him play Challengers with me. And that was my last game of the convention. I went home a little early on Saturday. I mean, maybe 10 or 11 o'clock or something, earlier than PM, earlier than I normally call it a convention and go home. We were in a new hall in the convention center, and I was frozen all week. I mean, I was wearing my sweatshirt and an undershirt and a shirt, and it was just freezing in there for me. So that I just didn't feel so great. John had actually left earlier in the day for, I think, the same reason. So anyway, I called it a few hours earlier than I normally do, but I would say that probably by the end of Wednesday, by the end of day 1, I had played more good games than I played all of last year at the convention. So this was a really good, last year was a little bit of a low for me that I played a bunch of games that I didn't like, but this convention was really good. So in fact, you know what, let's recap. What are the games that I really liked from the convention. All right, well, let's recap by talking about the games I'm definitely going to buy and the games that I'm on the fence about. So, Faraway, I mentioned already that I already have this on hold at Game Nerds, so I bought a copy and just waiting for some other things to come in stock, and then I'm going to have this shipped to my house. I think this fits in great with my gaming group, and I had a lot of fun playing it. Next is Middle Ages. So I guess I didn't actually play Middle Ages. I played Majesty for the Realm because Middle Ages isn't even out yet. But it's basically the same game, re-implementation that just I think looks fantastic. So as soon as this comes in as a pre-order at Game Nerds, I will pre-order a copy, and when it comes in, I'll release holds and get that sent to me. Kraftwagen, Age of Engineering. So this is kind of a cheat. I'm already going to get a copy from the crowdfunding campaign, but I did bring it to the convention and play it at the convention, and it took one of my favorite games of all time and just made it better. So great game. Endless Winter Paleoamericans. So this is one that I really enjoyed this, but I would definitely be on the fence about getting this, except that I got a copy really cheap at the virtual flea market. What are the kind of things that get you off the fence and get you to buy a game? Getting a cheap new in shrink copy. So this one is in my library now. This is one that I am on the fence about because basically for all the same reasons I would have been on the fence about Endless Winter. I just think it'll be harder to get to the table. I don't think this is something that I could pull out at my normal game night. I would have to, get people together specifically to play this game, which is always a little harder to do. So I'm on the fence about this one. I might trade for a copy or try to get it in a mass trade or something like that. But DeVere was there. They were selling copies and I decided not to buy it, but it might find its way into my collection anyway. Let's go to Japan. This one, like I said, I really enjoy it. And just looking here, 1 to 5 players, 45 to 60 minutes, wait a little over 2. That seems a little low to me. But all of that seems like something that would fit in with my gaming group. And I've played the game, and I think maybe it would fit in with my gaming group. So I just, I guess I'm thinking about it, right? I'm on the fence. I'm really tempted to get Let's Go to Japan. I think it's a great game. And similarly, Harmonies. This is a game that I think would work with my gaming group. I think people would enjoy it. I definitely enjoyed playing it. I just have to give some more thought to would I need... I would need to get 2 copies of this and find some way to combine them. And I've done that with games like Tiny Towns and Draftosaurus and Neom, right? I've combined copies to sort of raise the player count because of how the game plays. It's something that I think you can do here just fine. But I also have to look at, what is that makes buying the game twice as expensive. So, I want to look for it on a deal, maybe if I'm going to get 2 of them and do that. But anyway, yeah, there you go. So that's what was it? 7 games right there. Obviously, I played a lot of great games that were not new to me, like El Grande and Raw, classics that I know and love. And I played a lot of other good games too. So these are just games I'm specifically talking about adding to my collection. But all right, so earlier in the video, I mentioned subscribing would help us out. I mentioned we have the Discord channel that you can, just look in the description below and see the link to the Discord channel. Come over here, talk to me or any of the other Just Got Played crew about any stuff about games if you want. We're always happy to do that. But otherwise, until the next time, thanks for listening to me talk about Dice Tower East 2024.